All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our special session. My name is Rob Fisher. I'm a faculty member at the Mandel School, and we're so very pleased to be able to present this session this afternoon on grant writing with one of our very distinguished alums from the school. So my job is to introduce Celeste Terry and then turn it over to her. What I want to tell you about Celeste is that she is the grants manager at the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, and she's been working in the nonprofit sector for more than 20 years. She's received multiple awards from the Mandel School, including Outstanding Field Instructor. She's also been inducted into our Mandel School Hall of Achievement. She's a published author. She has a book called Transforming Nonprofits for Relevancy in Challenging Times, which I would encourage you to take a look at. The session that she's presenting today, she has developed for multiple audiences, and interestingly has presented it in multiple places, including Puerto Rico several times. She's also been recognized by the city of Cleveland, an award called the Faces of Sacrifice Award from Mayor Frank Jackson. And she's been inducted into the Shaker Heights Alumni Association Hall of Fame. She received her Master's of Science in Social Administration from the Mandel School, and she also has a bachelor's degree from the University of Bridgeport. And I can tell you from my own experience, this summer I had a summer course where students were working, the entire class was doing a project for the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, and they got a chance to meet with Celeste and were really blown away by her, and interviewed grantees of the United Black Fund, and kind of uniformly offering praise for Celeste's work with them, and specifically in helping them think through not just how to get money from the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, but how to write grants effectively as grassroots organizations and smaller nonprofits. So with that, I want to turn it over. Welcome, Celeste. Thank you for doing this.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Fisher. I may forget sometimes and call you Rob, but that's okay. Right. I hope. Okay. And also, Dr. Fisher was also one of my professors, so it's nice to kind of come full circle, which is nice. So thank you for that wonderful introduction. Before I get started, we were going to have some breakout sessions, but we're having a little technical difficulties. So we're going to use the chat room instead. So Rob will explain that to you when we get to that point. And I've also
sent out an email saying, yeah, it's really 1 o'clock.
Okay, yeah. So I also provided a logic model for you, which we'll talk about at the end of the presentation, and I will kind of reference as I'm talking during our discussion. So before I get into the actual discussion, I want to just kind of talk to you a little bit about some background and the context for today. And if we could, let's just start with our next slide. Thank you. And here we go. So what you'll notice is at the bottom, you'll say click Spanish. So the presentation was done also in Spanish. But before I get into that, I'll give you a little bit of background. I started a grant writing class in Mount Pleasant back in September 2017, and I held it at the Mount Pleasant Now Development Court on Kinsman Road. And over 400 people from all over Northeast Ohio attended. And the reason I did that was to bring our expertise and my expertise directly into a community that we serve, because a lot of people were still kind of intimidated with going downtown because our office is located in Playhouse Square, and with all the construction, it's a complete nightmare, and parking is just a nightmare now as well. But my other objective for doing the grant writing class, along with bringing our expertise there, was to identify 2 organizations that were small, who probably would have never heard about the United Black Fund, but who had their 501c3 designation, but we're doing the work for at least about 4 years. But we're at a point now where they needed some grant funding. And so I'm happy to say I identified 4 organizations that have come through my grant writing classes over the 3 years, and they've gone through our pre-application process and our grant application process, vetted by our committee, and we are funding 4 organizations that have come through the grant writing class. So that's pretty exciting, and how that has come about. Let's go to our next slide. In 2019, I went to a meeting at the Cleveland Leadership Center, and I heard about the fact that a group had gone to Puerto Rico in 2018 because they went to help assist residents from Hurricane Maria. And there's also a very large Puerto Rican population here in Cleveland, which is why the Cleveland Leadership Center works with that group. And so that group discovered that a lot of the folks in Puerto Rico wanted to learn about grant writing because they wanted to learn about how they could access funds to help deal with some of the issues from the hurricane. So I volunteered my teaching expertise, and I also had written a manual that I use in my own grant writing class, and I volunteered that. So that was translated into Spanish as well. And then we plan to go to Puerto Rico April 26th through April 30th, so that we could actually teach the grant writing class there. But of course, then the pandemic hit, and so the trip was canceled. And so instead of not doing anything, we just got everything together, got everything translated, and we offered 2 Zoom workshops at the same date that we would have done in Puerto Rico. And as I spoke and presented the information for the training, who translated it as Spanish. And then we did a 3rd workshop in May, and that was completely in Spanish. So people saw my face and I was speaking in English, but all they heard was Spanish. So that was pretty exciting. And so basically over 100 people registered and attended all 3 of those workshops. And all 3 of those workshops were presented for the people of Puerto Rico. And so when things settle down, we plan on going back to actually teach the workshops in person. And so what you see is a great collaboration between the Cleveland Leadership Center and United Black Fund. Our next slide, please. Marian Crossley is the president of the Cleveland Leadership Center. And our next slide, you'll see our director, Cecil Lipscomb, who is my boss. And on our next slide, we asked a few questions of folks because we were going to do the workshops in San Juan and another city called Loída. So we kind of asked folks where they would be coming from so we could kind of facilitate some discussion when they got into the breakout sessions. So let's go to our next slide and let's begin. And so I am Celeste Terry. Next slide, please. Now, what you see with this slide, and it's really going to set the tone for our discussion this afternoon. What you see is need. You see people lined up for water, but it could be anything. It could be medicine, it could be food, it could be building supplies. But recent events on the island and recent events here in the States with a lot of social unrest have really motivated many of you to come to the workshop this afternoon. You see need and you want to do something about it. But what you're going to learn is need is not enough. I'm going to teach you how to structure your need into a grant application. Before I go on, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm a grant manager at a grant making organization. I review the grant applications for the organization, and I created and teach a grant writing, a community grant writing class, which is one of many things I do, but that's one of the things I do. So many people coming to my class are really just like you. They have ideas, they have dreams, and they even see some dissatisfaction with what they see. And so they decide that they want to start a nonprofit organization and create a program. So I'm telling them what I'm telling you now. Get started doing whatever it is that you say you want to do. And I'm going to say that for a couple of reasons. First of all, funders do not want to fund startups. So it's very important that you get started doing whatever you want to do so that you can start building a track record. And I would actually wait a year at least before you actually begin to start applying for grants. The second thing to remember is that funders do not fund individuals. So you absolutely have to have clients and participants in your program because we just don't fund individuals. The next thing you want to consider is you have to think about where you're going to get the money and what foundations will you be applying to. So if this is still something you really want to do, let's take a look at some of the steps you're going to need to take to get your tax-exempt status. Let's go on to the next slide. Now, what you're going to see in the upper right-hand corner are some of the folks who went to Puerto Rico, and in the future, I'll be in that shot, in the future when I go back with them. But let's continue on with the discussion. There is actually a formal application process with the IRS to become a 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization. It really is a privilege to have a nonprofit designation. When you do have that, when you have your tax letter, when you're out buying some supplies for your organization and your program, you show that letter, you are not charged tax for your purchase. So that helps you save money for your organization. On the other side, when you are doing the work in the community and you start to build a good reputation and you're building that track record that I talked about, eventually people are going to start hearing about the work you do, and they're going to want to become donors to your organization. And so when people decide to donate to your organization, they get tax benefits on their income tax. And so it's a win-win situation for donors, and it's also a win-win situation for nonprofit organizations. The next aspect that you're going to have to consider is you're going to need to find 3 people to make up your board. Now, I recommend that you don't use relatives, but find friends and colleagues that share some of your interests, because they're going to help you build your organization, and they're going to really help support you in what you do. If you decide that you're not really ready to really apply to obtain your 501c3 status, you can still apply for funding, but you have to get a fiscal agent. A fiscal agent is an organization that already 501c3 organization, and so they're going to act in their stead. The check is going to be in that organization's name because they are recognized by the IRS. They are going to then work with you to do your reports, because anytime you get grant funding, you have to do reports. They will not be involved in your day-to-day operations, but they will help you with the reports. So if you do get a fiscal agent, you want to make sure it's a trustworthy organization, an organization that you have a relationship with, and an organization that you work things out with, because they may charge you a fee for providing that service for you. Also keep in mind, it really is just much easier to complete grant applications when you're actually doing the work. So remember, many people are actually doing the work long before they decide to apply for the 501c3 status. It just depends on where you are in your life. So you really have to take a look at that. It really takes a lot of time to run a nonprofit organization and to operate a program. It's a process, and it's really going to take a little bit of time to establish that nonprofit organization. So let's take a look at the next slide and take a look at some actual steps. There are 4 main steps, but there are a couple of things that you're going to need to do under each of those steps. Remember, it takes time, so be very patient when you file your paperwork. There's a lot going on in the world today. Excuse me. So you just need to be patient when you're filing things. It costs money, so it really is an investment. And again, it requires that you're going to need that board, because you're going to see that you're going to need that later on in our discussion. The first thing you're going to want to do is you need to choose a name for your organization. It should be memorable. It should be something that alludes to your mission. For example, at the United Black Fund, we fund an organization called Project Hope. Now, our grant allows them to purchase medicine from pharmaceutical companies or medical companies to nothing, and that medicine to clients who are poor or low income. And so they have established relationships with other organizations to help, with their particular program. If you happen to be in Puerto Rico, you would think about the Ricky Martin Foundation. You know who it is, you know the name, and you know his foundation is doing really good work on the island. The next thing you want to do is you want to register that name that you select. It's going to cost you $150. It's very important to register the name, because you want to make sure that no other organization has the name, because you don't want to have tax issues later on down the road. The next step will be to apply for your certificate of incorporation, which will be $5. Now, let's get to the board. The board is essential because it's going to help you create your bylaws. Your bylaws essentially say how your nonprofit is going to operate. The meetings that you're going to have, the number of meetings, the types of officers, their duties, their titles, any staff that you may have, and it will be consistent with the laws of Ohio. And if you were forming it in Puerto Rico, it would be consistent with the laws of Puerto Rico. You then will need to request your employer identification number, which is your EIN. And then once you have that, your organization is going to be tax exempt. Now, if you were in Puerto Rico and you were filing to create your nonprofit organization in Puerto Rico, you have an additional form to complete, which is Form SC4809, the Merchant Registration Certificate, which allows applicants to carry out operations in Puerto Rico. Now, let's kind of total up what the cost will be to the IRS. If your gross revenue is $50,000 or less, your filing fee is going to be $300 in addition to the other fees that we talked about a few moments ago. So I would budget at least about $500 for your filing fee. If your revenue is over $50,000, it's going to be $400 in addition to those other costs. So I would budget at least, $600 for the cost. Or just text. You can visit the irs.gov website, which I recommend that you do before you file anything, just to do your homework and look at everything and make sure that you file for the right 50C whatever status. Most will be 501c3, but make sure you do the right one. And if you happen to be in Puerto Rico, you can look at the Comina 66 website, which gives you additional information about some things you will need on the. All right, let's go with our next slide. And let's start getting into some discussion about concepts with grant applications. The first one we want to talk about is your mission statement and why it is so important. It really tells what you do and what you are known for. So I have some examples here, which I'm going to read for you, and I want you to pay attention to it. And then I want you to begin to also start paying attention to language and how you begin to paint the picture with words. Let's read the first one. We want to help people, especially small children. Okay, doesn't really tell, kind of vague. Let's take a few moments and step back and revise it. We seek to nourish children in Ponce, ages 0 through 5 years old, to enhance their success in life and school. This is a little bit better because now we're beginning to tie together the importance of nourishment with success in life and school for children. And so now we're beginning to paint the picture with language and beginning to get a little bit more detail about what this organization really does. Let's take a look at our next slide. Now, let's take a look at the program statement, why it's important, and why it can be very difficult to write. Program statements start with an idea, a dream, a passion, and even dissatisfaction, like I said before. You have a desire for change, and very often you want something better for people in the community. And think about it. Your organization, if you create something, could be the organization that does something really fantastic that really creates some really phenomenal change for people and the community. Let's take a look at our next slide. Now let's look further and talk a little bit further in detail about what makes your statement a little bit better and how we can develop that program statement to make it a bit stronger. So I'm going to read it and again, pay attention to the language. We want to increase feeding all children under age 5 in Ponce because we know children, I can't see because of the, let's see, the words there. Let's see. Let me see if I can go to my other presentation here. Hold on. Okay, I have it. Let me read it again for you. We want to increase feeding all children under age 5 in Ponce because we know children only get 1 meal per day. The lack of food affects cognitive development, socialization, classroom performance, and behavior. And so this makes for a very good program statement because you've got about 4 things within that statement. You have 4 key points. You've got some data, you've got the problem that is being addressed, you've got the audience that is to be served, and you have expressed a trend and some knowledge of what's going on in terms of how the lack of food affects performance. The other aspect that you have to think about when you're creating your program statement and how you're going to begin building your program is you also have to begin defining what your goals and outcomes are going to be. You've got to do your research so that you find the best practice, because you want to bring that into your program, because you want to make sure that you facilitate some type of change and growth for the participants over that grant year. Every point of contact must be meaningful. So you want to make sure that every activity that you have people doing leads to some sort of change that you want to see. You have really defined that when you start putting together that program statement. The other aspect that you must think about the program is, will people be coming weekly? Will they be monthly? You have to think about the time. 1 hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. So again, you've got to define that in terms of how your program is going to be. Now, as you're putting all of that together, you also have to figure out how you're going to begin collecting your own data. Data is so important because data proves that your organization and that your program can bring about the change that you say that you're going to see for your participants and people that come to your program. So you're going to want to make sure you have sign-in sheets. You want to create pre and post surveys. You want to just create anything that's going to help you capture information about participants coming to your program. Let's go to our next slide. Now, this is a slide that I like to use because it helps you further develop your idea, kind of more preparatory thinking. Let's think about what you want to do. Very often when people are thinking about programs and wanting to put something together, they're very passionate and they want to just do everything. And it's just impossible to do everything. So you have to learn how to narrow things down and focus on one thing that you feel that you can do well and start there, because you can always build up over time. But if you start out way too big, you're going to fail. So always start small and build up. Now let's think about where you might want to do your program. I recommend, before the COVID situation, because most things now are going to be virtual for quite a while. But before this hit, I would recommend that people look for places where you can do things for free. It could be libraries, it could be churches, it could be other organizations that have free space that you could utilize where you're not going to be charged rent, because you don't want to get into situations where you're paying rent and you don't have money for rent, and then you're really having to dig more and more into your pocket, and it's just not a good situation at that point. The next thing you want to think about is, how are you going to accomplish what you say that you're going to do? So you have to think about everything you're going to need, how you're going to get things to the particular location, all of those things. How are you going to do what you're going to do? Then you have to think about who you're going to serve, because you've got to identify the people and the right people who need to be coming to your program. And then you're going to need to have the material so that they're going to know you exist so that they can come to your program. You're also going to need to know what other partners that you might need to collaborate with. So with our example with the food program and feeding the children, they had to collaborate probably with food banks. With the previous example with Project Hope, they collaborated with medical community. So whatever you're doing, you're going to have to get out and know who you need to collaborate with, because it's probably going to be an important source for your program. The other thing you're going to be thinking about is, what is going to be the outcome and the benefit for the participants in your program? That's always the key. What's going to be the benefit for the end user? We get caught up in creating lots of wonderful programming, but sometimes we forget what's the real benefit for our clients. So never forget that. Think about the type of program too that you're also creating. Would it be an education program, a workforce training program, a civic leadership program? So again, you're going to need to know what type of program it is, because that's going to determine the type of programming that you're going to be creating. And again, you want to keep a lookout for corporate partners that you might need to get to know. So with our example, with the child and the food program, you might find a corporate, entity out here who's really supporting early childhood development. So that's, your light bulb. You mark that down, you get that information, go to the website, find out who the program person is, find out what their parameters are for their grants, and if it fits, then start developing a relationship with the program person, and eventually you get the right deadlines. If it's the right fit, then you can submit a grant. Again, always be thinking about, when you're creating the program, what is the change that you want to see for the people coming to your program? And so when you're looking at all of this, it really shows you that developing a program takes a great deal of thought, and you really have to stick with it over the long term. I also tell people, do not change your mission to chase money. It gets to be like that sometimes, because you will see sometimes other things getting lots of money, and it will be tempting for you to do that. But don't ever do that. Stick to your mission, because eventually you're going to find the funding that you need. Just don't jump around, because that's when people get in trouble. They get off mission, and then eventually, they really lose track. Let's go on to our next slide. So this would be a point where we would do a breakout session, but at this point, we're going to do something with the chat, and we can ask a question about, perhaps if you have any questions about any programs that you might be familiar with, and if you have any missions that you know about and how missions are moving their programs forward.
Hey, Celeste.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a couple questions come up while you were talking through this last section. I wondered if you wanted to address them. One was about, you mentioned pre-post surveys. Yes. Could you say a little bit more about how to think about the timing of when to do those?
Sure. Let's see, for example, that would get into my next slide, but we can jump to that. So for example, you may want to, at the beginning of the first program, let's say the first week or so of your program, you may want to do a survey to see what people know about that particular piece of the program, whatever you're doing or whatever the issue is, to gauge what they may know about whatever it is you're trying to address. And then that's going to give you information about what they know, what they don't know. And that's going to help you kind of tweak your programming to know what you should focus on and what you maybe don't have to discuss. And then maybe in 6 months, you may want to take another survey to see if what you've been talking about those previous few months is making a mark. If it's not, it's going to come up in those surveys, and then it's going to help you tweak. Maybe you need to make a change. Okay, and that's okay, because as I will slide, it's okay when things don't go as planned, because it will force you to think differently and try new things, which is always a good thing. And then you can take a survey at the end of the grant year, which will usually be 1 year. And then you can see how effective your programming was. Was it effective? Was it not effective? But that's how you use pre and post surveys to gauge what your clients are learning, excuse me, gauge what your clients are learning and what you may want to tweak with your programming.
Okay, thank you. And we had another
Mhm.
question about, can this be applied for UK grant applications too? I assume so, since it is a framework, but wanted to check. So for applying to funding in the United Kingdom, or, you know,
Yes, yes. Again, you have to do your research, look for international foundations, and they will be the larger, well, you know, NGOs, they'll be smaller, but you can find those. But the larger foundations, like, you know, the Rockefellers and things like that, those are large international foundations. So you can find out, you know, what is available and if in fact you can apply to them, if it's a fit for you. And the framework that I'm teaching you is the framework for applications everywhere, because everybody asks pretty much the same thing. But you will get the application for wherever you're applying to, and then you will tweak the application and answer the way they want it. But everybody's going to have some type of application that you will need to navigate and that you will need to complete. So that's why it's good to get familiar with applications. Was there another question? Let's see if I can take one from here. I'm quite sure what that is. Is anybody hearing me? Did we freeze?
Hear you. We lost Rob for a little bit and now he's
Okay.
back.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah, okay, good. There we are. Okay. So I answered that question. Was there one more? Did you want me to continue on?
Another question, Celeste, is what are the most common mistakes you see nonprofits make in grant applications?
Very good one. One of the biggest ones is foundations fund programs. And so very often people don't take the time to really think about the program, and then they just ask for salary. And so when you ask for salary, that will immediately throw your application to the side, because the funder will say, well, we don't fund salary, we fund programming. And so it's very important to make sure you contact that particular foundation ahead of time to find out if in fact they do fund that. When you get into larger grants, they will allow you to fund for salary, because you know they're much larger grants, so they understand that, because you're pulling grant funding from different sources, and that's fine. But when you're funding, getting funding for generally smaller community programming, funders don't want that. So that's always a big problem that really kind of disqualifies a lot of small funders, because they don't understand that. So don't put money in salary, put money in your support costs, because that's where all your grant money should be going. It should be showing the money going for the money to show what you're doing with the point of contact for your clients. That's going to make your programming engaging and interesting for your clients to keep coming back to you for that year, for as long as that grant funding is available.
Celeste, one question that comes from your comments about if you're just starting out and you don't really have an organization yet, you still need to have a track record when you go for funding. So yeah, presumably you're doing this on a shoestring, volunteer based. You got to keep track of that stuff. You mentioned the kind of a sponsoring organization potentially. Yeah. If a startup is applying using that sponsoring organization, are they going to draw costs from that grant as well as the flow through entity? How will that work?
Yeah, for the most part, a fiscal agent is not going to want to work with a startup. They're going to want to wait for you to have developed something. So that's why I'm saying wait till you have a track record. Wait till you're doing something. Wait till you have some paperwork that shows something that you've been doing something, because nobody wants to fund a startup. Okay, so that would be my point. Build a track record first, as difficult as it is, but you must do that because it's just the way things are today.
Well, we're not seeing additional questions in the and I'm wondering if you want to continue on with your second set of slides, and
Sure,
then we can open it up again.
sure, that would be great. Okay, let's go on to our next slide. Oh no, let me see. Let's see, where are we? Nope, this is it. Okay, this is our slide that we want to talk about now. Okay, very good. Let's talk a little bit about some of the terms that funders want to hear when you're actually putting your grant application together. You're going to see some terms that are interchangeable, but they mean the same thing. So for example, organization statement is the same as mission statement. Problem statement, it's what's the issue or the need you plan to address. Program or project goal, impact and objectives. These are the things that you hope to achieve within that grant year with your particular program. This will generally contain two components. And as I was stating a little bit before, you're going to be talking about what was done, you know, what went well, what could have been done better. And again, it's okay if things don't go as planned, and they usually don't. But again, it allows you to think differently. It allows you to go back to the funder and say, hey, this didn't work, but we're thinking about doing X, Y, Z. And it also kind of puts something in the funder's head that, hey, maybe we will fund them again because they're thinking differently. And so, you know, they're thinking a better way, so we can continue giving them some more grant funding, which is a good thing. You want to do that. And the other most important thing is, did the program meet the objectives and goals that you set for your participants, which is also very important. You also always want to make sure that you're meeting the goals for your participants. And also, you want to make sure that you are collecting that data about your program. So make sure that you are collecting program notes from all the people who are working with your program. So you can look online and gather information about forms you may need, or you may create your own forms. You can also have something with team notes. So you just want to get all that information so that in the end, you have information that has data that proves the effectiveness of your program. Let's go to our next slide. Now, let's talk about some of the words that will let a funder know that you kind of know what you're talking about. Let's go back to the example that we gave early on with our young girl and the food program. I'm a social worker and you all are social workers. And so when you hear words like socialization, cognitive development, classroom performance, you know, behavior, you could throw in ACE factors, you could throw in trauma informed, all those kind of things let the funder know that you truly understand what's going on and you understand the terms that you should be using. And so these terms also connect that nourishment is very important to academic performance and behavior in school for children. And of course, those words are near and dear to our hearts because we're social workers. So again, use the language because it lets funders know that you know what you're talking about. Let's go to our next slide. Our next couple of slides begin talking a little bit about data. Okay, we're gonna go forward. Is that it? Yes, okay. No, our next slide. Let's go forward. That was backwards. There we go, forward, one more. There we go, okay. Now we're getting into talking a bit about data, which is very important. How would you define impact in your grant? And so basically, you have to learn how to define impact with your data. What change is going to result from your program? Your data and your demographics have to support the need. So when we gave our example with the little girl and the food, clearly there was a food desert. Perhaps the family was low income. So you want to paint a picture for why there's a need for your program. You want to look for that research, which talks about what's going on and what are the trends that you happen to see. So let me try to tie this together for you to paint the picture for you. So I'm going to use Maria as the name. So Maria is, 5 years old, and she's been going to school, and she's been doing pretty well in school. Behavior has been pretty well. But lately, her behavior's changed a little bit. She's not been getting along with the other students. She's been crying a lot. She just hasn't seemed to have been herself. So they're just, paying attention to this, and she's had to start disciplining Maria because of her behavior. And so the other moms are coming, to pick up their children from school. And of course, they're talking. And so the teacher overhears that some of the parents have been saying that some of the families have been taking food over to Maria's house because the family has been a little food insecure and needs a little extra food. And so the teacher heard this, so she's beginning to make some connections. And so the next time that her mom brings Maria to school, the teacher tells Maria's mom about this program. And so the mother gets Maria into this program that now provides this meal every morning for the children. So now Maria has a guaranteed meal, before she goes to school every day. So the teacher has noticed, within days, weeks, that Maria's behavior has changed dramatically. She's no longer crying. She's getting along with the kids. She's, paying attention, and everything is just so much better. And so what you can come to the conclusion as is that Maria really wasn't a bad kid. She was just hungry. And so this program that now exists is meeting a need because now, they're making sure that children have a meal before they start school. And so now you see how you tie this together. You paint the picture of the need, and then you can show the impact of this particular program, what was before and what is after, and the benefit for having this type of program in the community. And so that's how you begin to tie a lot of this together and paint the picture with the language. Let's go to our next slide. Now, what follows impact? Impact over time. And so this is really what you want to see. Outcomes are the results that the organization wants to see within a certain time frame. So you want to see some type of change for your clients over that grant year. And so that's what I was speaking about a few moments ago. You want to see some kind of change at the 3 month, the 6 month, or the 12-month period. So for example, you could use this for teenagers, you could use it for adults. Let's say when they first come to the program, they're late, not engaged, they kind of act like they don't want to be there, not talking to anybody. But because you've created some very interesting, engaging, compelling programming, you know, they keep coming back and they keep participating. So now at 3 months, you're beginning to see something a little different. They're starting to come on time, starting to engage differently, starting to talk to the other participants. In 6 months, you see even greater improvement. Maybe whatever your particular program does, you're showing great results with that. And so at the end of 12 months, maybe this person wants to take on a leadership role or a mentor role because the programming you've provided has really changed them to the point where they feel that they can now offer something or they can now change someone else's life. And so that's what I'm talking about when you have some kind of impact and you want to see some type of change over that particular grant year. And so that's where you get with the surveys and that kind of thing, so that you can see the change and then you can quantify that with your surveys and things like that. Our next slide, please. I found some information from Social Solutions, which I thought was very interesting because what it says is that 97% of funders state that the impact an organization can prove is the very list of the things that they look for. So this is why it is so important that you collect data and that your data shows impact, because your data shows that your program does what it says that you state that it does. So people are looking for impact, not just a wonderful story, but they want to see that your program is really making a change and doing something for people's lives. Next slide, please. So again, let's kind of recap what proves your impact. And what this means is data is as simple as learning to quantify what you do. So for example, let's go back to the example with the meals. Let's say you started serving 10 meals, and because word got out, grew in popularity, you've gone from 10 meals to serving, let's say 25 meals. And so you're going to begin quantifying that because you're showing the impact of what's happening with your program. And you maybe have gone from those 10 meals that maybe served, I don't know, 20 people, that now you're serving, 30 to 50 people. And so now you're quantifying not only the increase in meals, but you're also quantifying the increase in the number of people that are being served. And so you have to begin to learn to quantify what you do, because that is the data that reflects what you're collecting from your program. So how you collect, assess, and present your data is crucial for getting more funding. So this is why it is so important to really learn how to quantify what you're doing. You also want to talk about, as I said before, what was missing before your program came along. If there was no food program for the children, the impact was, behavioral issues. But now there's a food program. So the kids are doing, much better, and they have a meal now, which gives them some nutrition, to do better throughout the day. You want to talk about what exists now after your program, because sometimes in communities, once a program comes, sometimes other services start coming because now there's something there. And so your program may be a draw for other services. So you'll want to talk about how your program might be having a great positive impact on that community as well. And then you want to talk about, again, what other community resources might be out there as a result. Because as you grow, you're going to want to know how to connect your participants to more and more resources. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to know what's out there so that you can connect people to resources that already exist with programs that are already doing the work. Let's go to our next slide. And so we have time for another couple of questions in lieu of our breakout session.
If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll ask one out of the gate following on that last conversation.
Yes.
So if my program, I'm operating a church-based food pantry, and I have really good data on how many meals, how many pounds of food, and how many people I feed. Is that enough? Or do I have to then find a way to measure how being fed benefits the people that come to me?
Yes, the other thing you're probably going to need is the zip code, because that's also how a lot of the food banks distribute food. So you may not want to do several zip codes, but maybe one or two, depending on that. So a lot of it has to do with quantifying the pounds of food that you're distributing and like what types and the families, the people who might be receiving it. That's how food pantries tend to show what they're distributing in their reports.
Yeah, so if I'm doing something that's more like emergency response, then just counting outputs or how much service I provide could be sufficient.
Yes, you might, let's say if you're doing like what you see with food pantry doing the drive-thrus, you might be quantifying the number of cars that have pulled up, because you hear that. It started out with, let's say, 20 cars. And then by a month or two later, now, it's 200 cars, or now they're out there all day. So you're quantifying the number of cars, and maybe they're actually counting the number of people in the cars. And then they can quantify how many boxes of food are being put into trunks, so things like that, yes.
Okay, we have a couple additional questions. So since I got kicked out of the meeting and came back in, I can't see Leah's previous question about qualitative data, but I'm presuming it had to do with, Nada, are you able to see that question?
Yeah, it is, the question is,
I'm trying to see too.
sorry, the question is qualitative data enough on the survey?
Oh, thank you.
Qualitative.
What
Yes, you qualitative is good, but you need some numbers too to support what you're talking about, because funders like to have the numbers too. So if you can have both, that's even better. Qualitative tells the story, but the numbers give you more of the facts.
Okay, we have another question about, do you have any advice or considerations for 501c3 advocacy public education organizations that are pursuing grants? So if they're doing work in public education or advocacy.
Yes, you can do that. So you may, depending on, you have to look for foundations now. There's a lot of social justice things going on right now. So you may check some of the foundations who are now providing some grants for social justice. And you may, and it could be a one-time situation because some of the foundations have been doing some COVID-19 funding grants as a one-time thing because of what's happening right now. So I would just do some homework and see who's doing social justice grants. You know, could be Kellogg, could be Kresge, could be some of the national, it could be even some of the local, but yes, definitely check into that for sure. It's the time right now.
Okay. You talked about how the program impacts the folks that we actually served through the program. Should the applicant talk about how it might benefit the community more broadly beyond the population actually served, but the broader community?
Yes, you can paint the picture for the impact of the program in that community, but you definitely want to paint the picture for how that program is going to impact the people that come to that program. Definitely. Yes, because because there will be some communities where there's absolutely nothing. And then if this program comes, it may breathe life into a community. So you want to talk about that as well, and then talk about how, again, that program may be an attraction that brings things and people into that community. So yes, do both, but definitely talk about the impact on the individual as well.
Sometimes in logic models, we see folks talking about the people they serve, and then the last box says infant mortality in Cleveland will decline, or juvenile crime in Atlanta will be reduced. But if you look at how many people they serve, they might reduce those things in the population they serve, but it's, unless they're a lot bigger as a program, it might be pretty tough to change a community level indicator.
Right,
So
right.
I think the rationale makes sense, but
Right.
there's a little overreach issue.
Right, right. We'll talk about that in a few moments when I go back. But yes, again, that's where you get back to the scale of things. And then when you're doing community programming, you're going to be looking at smaller scale of the impact of what you're trying to do. So maybe it's, I don't know if it's lead, maybe it's, doing a couple of lead tests with some children in a neighborhood, something like that. More community-based. You don't want it to just be really, really huge because that would be out of your scope. Yeah.
Okay, we have a little case example here. My program partners with a local health clinic to provide a food prescription program. A community market where I work provides vouchers for the patients to purchase $20 fresh fruits and vegetables. I require a short survey when patients enroll, but they don't always complete it. How might I quantify the number of patients served, families receiving food on their tables?
Mm-hmm. Well, what you might want to do is, if they are coming directly in, you may want to have a staff person sit down with them, because sometimes people don't, literacy is a big issue in Cleveland, and not everybody can read, or not everybody can read these surveys. So you may want to have a staff member actually just sit down with someone and complete the survey with them, so you can get the information that you need. And then that way, you'll have it. But it's a big trouble. It's a big problem. I used to work at an organization teaching anger management, and we had surveys that people had to fill out, and we can tell when they didn't know how to read, because they would say, "Oh, I forgot my glasses," or it would be something. So we would know that they didn't know how to read. So we would have to spend extra time and actually go over the survey with them so we could get the information. So again, it's kind of, knowing your clientele and going that extra mile with them, and being empathetic and understanding. If, they can't read, then you take on that and fill it out for them.
But with your funder hat on, if if I'm sharing data and I have a bad response rate on my survey, is that going to count against me in my reapplication for funds?
No, no, we are more interested in the fact that you tried to do it. And so we like that you even made the effort to do it, because sometimes you're just not going to get responses. You may get 1 or 2 or 3, you know, which sometimes you'll get good information from those 3 responses, but sometimes you won't get them. But we like to see that you made the effort. And then if you keep trying, eventually you'll get more. But you made the effort. That's what funders like to see.
Okay, I think we're up to date on the questions from the chat. Did you have
All
a,
right.
do you want to go back to your?
Yeah, let me go back, because I'm really at the end, and then we'll just a couple more slides and we're done. All right, now we're at the point now where we're just kind of wrapping up everything. I give you some final points for you to remember. So remember that every program is built to serve your mission, meet a need, and serve people well. How you make a difference is the outcome and impact every grant application must have. So I really thank you for joining me this afternoon. This has really been fun. I love sharing this information with you. And I'm going to click on, I think, some other slides, because I want to just kind of go over the logic model with you that's there. Let's see. I think there's another screen with some funders on there. I wanted to share that. He brings that up.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said. What did you want me to bring up, the slideshow again, or the PDF?
Yeah, bring up the slideshow. The last slide, there's community foundations, and then we can show the logic model if you have that on there. Let's see. Okay. Ah, there we go. Okay. All right. So here are some things, resources that you may want to look at. Community foundations, that would be like the Cleveland Foundation, United Black Fund, Gun Foundation. So you'll want to do, you know, your research ahead of time to know exactly who you should be applying to. If you happen to be an arts organization, you can apply to the Cuyahoga Arts and Culture group. You're going to have to complete the Data Arts Cultural Data Form, which is a big database, which basically is how they track where arts dollars are going. So you have to do that when you apply. If you decide you want to go for bigger grants with the National Endowment for the Arts, you will have to get the Dun & Bradstreet number or a UCI number. It's called a Unique Entity Identifier, which again, they're all tracking numbers, which lets them know which organizations are applying for grants, and it gives information about organizations. So you'll need to do that when you apply for those types of grants. There are county and state grants, which you can apply for. Certainly the federal grants, those are the very large multi-million-dollar grants. Those are the ones that you have to put money into. So don't even apply for those unless your organization has at least $200,000 to put into the process. Now, the challenge with researching grants now is greater because the Foundation Center no longer exists. It has morphed into Candid, and GuideStar and basically Grants Plus are all part of Candid. And so where information used to be free, it has now been monetized. So now you're going to have to pay for information about foundations. So it's a little tougher to do the research, but you know, you can still use Google, of course, and you can still use some of the library systems, but you know, it's still not quite the same as when you hit some keywords and all the great things come up like they used to do at the Foundation Center. But it does make things a little bit more challenging, but it's still out there for your research purposes. Next slide. If there's anything else, I guess that's it. All right, so let me just talk about the logic model that you all have. I give this to all my students, so it's one of the better ones that I found because it allows you to really, oh, there it is. Yes, there we are. Yes, it's a great source because it really helps you think through, A, how to create programs. It allows you, once you create a program, then you can create your budget. And then once you do that, you can begin looking at your outcomes that you want for people coming to your program, short-term, intermediate, and long-term. So I think this is one of the best logic models that I have found. It's easy to follow, it's easy to utilize, and I just recommend that you use it for your classes or really for anything where you have to think through putting something together. It's a great tool for that and to help you think through some things. So look at that as my gift to you for this grant writing experience.
Maybe we do have another question that came up.
Oh, sure.
Could you talk a little bit about the difference between goals and objectives?
Sure. Now your goals are more broad. Your objectives are more time related, things you want to happen within a time frame. So your goals would be, I think, more broad. You have a goal that you want somebody to graduate. Your objective is you want them to graduate within this 6-month time frame of going to your program. So just keep in mind that an objective has a time frame, a goal is a bit more broad.
And it's true that you could have multiple objectives under a single goal as an umbrella.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Probably true. All right, bring in those last questions. This is Celeste
we're bringing it home.
Celeste is ready for them. Can you give examples of objectives under goals?
Objectives under goals. Well, I just kind of gave you one. You know, let's see. Well, again, you know, we want to, the program is, okay, let's say it's, oh, I don't know, let's say it's a workforce program. We want you to learn this new software. Okay, so you have a program to teach the software. And then the objective is we want you to learn this software and this software to teach you this in the particular time frame within this year. So within the year of the program, you're going to learn how to do XYZ from coming to our program. So goal is broad, objective is got some kind of time frame attached to it because you want something to happen within a time frame. And with these grants, something needs to happen within the time frame of the grant. Most of the grants are going to be a year. When you get into larger grants, they can be multi-year grants, 2-year grants. So that requires even more work, more definition, you know, for your goals and objectives and things like that, which requires even more detail and work. For most community programs, you're looking at your grant that's going to last a year. So you want to define, again, this way you go back to the logic model, because that's going to help you define, you know, what things should be.
I'll ask another question since we've got anytime we have a funder, it's always
Yes.
good to ask them for guidance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What, I mean, people have, until they've written a grant, people usually have high anxiety about the process. And I think you've helped by breaking down some of those perceptions about what it looks like to actually carry this out. I mean, is there anything else you would say about common mistakes people make when they're doing this early on in their grant writing career, regardless of how long their career is? It might be their first grant. Any other common mistakes you see people making that you think are avoidable?
Oh, sure. Yes, not doing your research. Having your own idea and then just submitting it somewhere, but not taking the time to see if that foundation even funds what you are submitting. So a lot of times people don't do the necessary homework before they get out of the gate, and then they get frustrated, you know, when there's a decline because they're submitting. So I can't stress enough the importance of taking the time to do your homework and do research, and don't be so quick to just slap something together and submit it somewhere without doing that, because that gets you a no. And then if you keep doing that a lot, you know, people talk, we funders talk, it's a small community. So people get to know, like if you keep doing that, people, you know, they call each other and they'll go, well, did you hear something about that? And well, you know, don't fund him, you know, whatever. So we talk. So you don't want to get a bad reputation. Just, you know, do your homework. And again, you know, pick up the phone and you can call program people too. Don't be a pain, but you can certainly call and ask questions and get clarification before you even start the process.
Yeah, that's actually there was a follow-on question about how do you build a relationship with a funder before you apply? And a lot of people are scared to call up and say they have an idea that they haven't fully thought it all through. But you're saying that's still a good conversation to have before you apply?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I say you have to, you know, kind of get to know the foundations where you're applying, because some are very, you know, real heavy duty corporate, and they may not necessarily take the time to do that with you, but most are pretty community friendly. And so if you, you know, call and set up an appointment and go prepared, you know, and ask some intelligent questions, people will take the time with you and explain the process, and they will help you. And if it's not a good fit at that particular moment, most program people will help give you the ideas to help you make it better, and they will encourage you, you know, to come back. But no, absolutely, don't be afraid, because that's the only way you're going to know how to submit something, you know, and that's how you develop relationships too.
That's right. When you mentioned the track record, the importance of having a track record earlier, what if the organization has a track record in a particular kind of program, and now they're applying it, but they're seeking funding for something that's different than their normal practice? Does that track record help them in making the case in that application, even though the new program is somewhat different?
Yes, because you still will have a reputation for the organization. It's just that the program may be a little different. So we would be looking at the overall reputation of the organization. And again, you know, I would invite a conversation, you know, come on in and tell me about the program, if it's a little different, or if you've gone a little slightly different direction. In fact, we have an organization that we're funding. It was more of an education piece, but this time they came back for slant. So overall, what the organ is, the programming has changed slightly, because she's got older young ladies who are now wanting to seek employment. So I said, well, you need to figure out some aspect of your programming that now addresses how you're going to help the older young ladies, which is that 17 through 24 tough population that needs to be prepared for work. So no, that's fine.
Seeking some advice on making financial projections when putting together your application.
So that's, again, that's why you have to really think about your program and what you plan to offer, because that's how you determine what your budget will be. One of the things I tell people a lot of times, depending on what your program is, you don't want to have a lot of money going out to other consultants and other guest speakers that might be coming in, because that means your money's going out to other people and you still will have no money because money's gone out the door. So again, you just want to be looking at what type of program and the budget that you're going to need to make, again, that point of contact compelling. So when people come to your program, whether it's weekly or monthly, you know, what are you going to do with them? You know, what's going to be engaged with them to stay with you for an hour that evening, or to make me come back, you know, each week, because you're dependent on numbers to keep that grant funding. And so if your program is not compelling, and let's say you lose everybody after 2 months because it's just not clicking, that's telling you something's not right with your programming. So you're going to have to go out and find some new people, or you're going to have to let the funder know this is not working and return the grant money. Okay. You know, that's how it is.
All right, this is a hard question.
Okay.
And not that this happens, but if you don't get funded, what can we expect from funders about giving feedback on the application strengths and weaknesses as a learning experience? Once you get, if you're getting rejected, what happens?
Oh, what happens is I encourage them, I tell them to call me, because when people get the no letters, that's in the no letter. Please give me a call. I'll explain why. And so I encourage people to give me a call, because then I can explain why the committee decided on what they decided. And then I always encourage people, because our pre-application process opens in January. So if you don't make the cut this time, I can give you insight as to what the committee said. And then I always encourage, you know, you can always come back in January, but take heed to what we said, and then don't do the same thing again, but, you know, think about what we said and come back with something a little different and a little bit better. But no, you can always come back. That's why you have to have that conversation, so that you can get better, so that you can learn and not make the same mistakes, you know?
So really, sometimes a no is more like a not now,
Yes.
not yet.
Not yet, not now, maybe not at this moment, but it doesn't mean it's shut out for the rest of your life. Absolutely not. It just means that you might need a little bit more work, or it may not be a program for us at this time. Maybe it's something for another organization to consider. But no, it's always something you can come back to. No doesn't always mean no, it just means not at this particular time.
We've had several people ask if your contact information will be available if they want to follow up.
Yes.
Is it okay if we put that on the slides?
Yes. Or, you know, let's see, you can email Nada, or however you want to give it to me, or you want to put it into the chat, or however you want to do it.
Okay. Well, if Nada, if you want to put it in the chat, that's fine too.
Sure, I'll do it.
Okay. Yeah, you can put it in the chat. Yes, you can contact me anytime. I'm always available. I love talking to people and helping them, you know, navigate this process and ultimately getting some money.
Well, there's been a lot of appreciation expressed in the chat for the way that you've presented this, making it accessible, and I'm not sure if this will lead to a flood of applications to United Black Fund, but you can deal with that if that's the case.
Just give me the code word, grant writing class.
All right. Well, I think we're done with the. Okay, so Celeste's email is in the chat now.
Yes.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you, Celeste. It's been such a delight to listen to you this afternoon and to have you speak as an alum and a distinguished professional in our vibrant nonprofit sector in the region. So
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And thank you everyone for joining this afternoon. Take care.
Thank you.